Hello, Sri. How are you?
I'm doing good, Ramesh. How are you?
Doing very well, thank
Good,
you. It's, doesn't it always feel happy when you're coming to office on a winning note with a CSK win yesterday?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. It feels great to always have a great start, for the weekend, for the weekday with the weekend win from
Absolutely. So,
Chennai Super,
Kings.
Kings, right?
Tuning in, this is Outbound by Highperformr. Myself, Ramesh, and Sri. We are the co-founders here at Highperformr, and today we want to talk about something that lives around, that breathes around our everyday lives as we speak to more and more customers. What is it, Sri?
So, I think we've been talking about few topics, right? I think this one seems to be the one we've been interacting with a lot of customers. I think last been a year, a lot of customers conversation, specifically last 3 months, significant traction from what we've been doing. But one thing has been common, right? I mean, all the customers seems to be chasing new leads.
Yep.
Right? Everybody is obsessed about.
We love leads, new leads, right? That's my world. I've lived in that world.
I know, but I think but still obsession hasn't reduced. But of course, outbound is becoming the most important
Yep.
GTM strategy for everybody. The question I have is that, meaning, do you think people are trying to overlook the resources they already have when it comes to generating leads? I know there's no better person I know who I could ask this question. Now, you tell me what you think about it.
Right.
Are people really going after new leads, or upset about getting new leads, not understanding what they already have?
I think every organization in this world loves new leads. We
Okay.
all want new leads. As marketers, we want new leads. As growth experts, we want new leads. As sales, we need new leads. Hey, how can we get more new leads? But I think in the last 18 months, there's been a paradigm shift, right? It's been a huge shift from saying new leads to see how can we reduce cost,
Okay.
right? Because new leads are getting expensive. But what we're realizing is there is gold in your CRM. There is absolutely gold lying in your CRM. Yeah, it's like a treasure hunt. How can you get more out of it rather than go out looking at the world outside and get more leads, right?
Yeah. So in this part, I think let's discuss why it's happening, Ramesh. Like how can we get better at mining this gold? Like what you said, right? And let's start with why does this why do we really overlook these existing leads? Why is it happening? Can we just double click and maybe talk about it? I think the question I have for you is that, why do we chase new leads and when we already have warm leads? And you're saying that there's like enough warm leads. Of course, we want to double click and understand how to really find those warm leads from the existing
Correct
CRM or the gold mine, whatever you want to call it. That's one thing. But I want to understand why do people are overlooking the existing leads they have?
I think
why are we so obsessed about generating new leads when the cost has gone up so high?
Yeah.
Let's pause there. I want to get to know why first.
I think there are a couple of things, right? Everyone gets excited when the marketers get excited when there is a new demo. There is a request for demo that's kind of coming. Or there are some new trial users that are coming in, right? And that's taken as a proxy that I want to buy your product right now.
Okay.
So therefore, that's the obsession with new leads, right? You look at people, you look at companies visiting your website, and you call that a new lead.
Correct.
You say,
Correct.
hey, wow, there's a new company. It's getting less and less effective, right?
Okay.
It is becoming ineffective, right? Because they're not new leads per se. They're just trying out. You've given them an option to go get a demo, but that doesn't mean they want to buy a product right now.
Okay.
However, if you see, there have been past people who have come to your website.
Okay.
There have been people who have been your customers. Now they've churned out like 18 months back. There have been people who have even tried your product and not being used. So they are your ICP. They are people who also wanted to go ahead and buy your product. You could have imagined so, right? But we care a damn about them. We all are always on the lookout for new leads.
So what you're saying is, if you just take a step back, right? I think there are different ways to generate leads, right?
Yep.
I mean, sign-ups from web sign-ups,
from form fills,
all of them.
Demos.
Now, I've heard this from you dozen a time, saying that, hey, at any given time, you only have 5% people who are going to buy in a given time.
Correct.
So can you just take a step back and explain what you mean by new leads?
Yeah.
Right. Why is that considered a gold mine? to just go back and look at it? And why is it not happening naturally today? Right?
I started with the fact that as marketers, as sales folks, we all get enamored. We love new leads coming into the system, hitting
Of
our
course.
board, and
Your measure is always the number of new leads you
So
generate.
imagine it's a workflow that has been set up. It's a workflow that it comes, you spend money, you do it organically, you get people onto your website, or in some form or the other, there's a referral, and then there are leads coming in your way. That works.
Okay.
But what doesn't work is getting a new workflow, because once it's in your CRM, which you call it as a system of record, it's only about the past. Record is always of the past, right? Record is not of the future. So you always treat them as, okay, these are past leads, right? These are past email IDs, and I don't think, there's always human psychology to say, hey, we already called them back, they're not interested.
Correct. Because I've also seen in my, in the past life where we don't consider any sign up or any lead per se, which was like older than 90 days.
As there you go.
You
just have your own answer.
And these are like hundreds and thousands of leads, right? So are you saying that you have a better way to go back and visit them, revisit them again and again?
AI today has changed that completely, right? With AI today, you can have the entire workflow reignited, right? These are past leads. These are people who have taken the demo. So what? So now AI comes in, and you're able to enrich those leads at like super fast time. For example, the person who tried your product and didn't want to buy, has moved to another job. So hey, you've tried it in the past. You know us. You already know who we are. So there is no cost that needs to be spent on that particular user. So why don't you get them, right?
So Ramesh, I think if you just look at it, right, you bring a very interesting point, right? You're saying that, hey, there is a new way to look at the entire demand gen. Instead of just over-relying on new business, you're saying that only for new...
No, this is new business
when
as
I'm
well.
talking about
new leads.
New leads versus looking at what you already have. What it means is that, let's also talk about like why teams, chase the outside in leads. And they actually neglect the inside out.
Oh yeah, that's a very nice way of putting it
out, right? So let's just take a step back and say, hey, let's talk about the top 3 reasons why people do it. Or maybe I can just start with one idea. One is, in our head, we've been wired,
conditioned
to decay a lead with time frame. And we end up going back and spending more again and again to get the same person in, which means that our processes are set up such that there is a decay for the new lead. And like what you're saying, I think to me, I just learned this in the last 6 months, where there is no decay for a lead. If they match your ICP, of course, there are not enough tools which really does that constantly. We'll talk about that later. But if they match your ICP, there is no lead which is called old lead or dead lead, or there's no invalid lead, right? So that is one. But I would say, in our head, we're wired to look at lead as a new lead. But say there's no new lead, they might exhibit a buyer intent. For example, a new sign-up is basically considered a kind of a buyer intent, which is of maybe higher order importance. We've been wired differently, right? Why being wired is that we always wanted to decay a lead, and that's the reason we said new lead. The name new lead itself comes with the time frame.
Correct.
But the shift in the way people should look at, of course, there were not enough tools in the past. The CRM was considered just a system of record, being somebody a part of the story, right? That is the problem. There is a mindset shift. That is one reason. So what are other reasons you think why we are even looking at this? Why do you think we are obsessed about chasing the outside in leads?
It's we've answered this already in parts, right? CRM is treated as a system of record. A record is always of the past, right? You are like, only if a lead comes in, it sits in the record, but there is no intelligence on top of that record. Today, that's probably the number 2, right? First is definitely the psychological way of thinking.
People say
second,
new lead.
There is no intelligence on that CRM. There is no intelligent way that the CRM keeps functioning. It's not a continuous machinery that keeps providing you with new leads, right? It's only an external marketing system or an external source of leads that gets plugged into the CRM. What if the CRM itself
can generate
leads?
That's not the way we look at things.
It's not there. You're still looking at, there's Outbound, there's LinkedIn. Those are sources. But imagine if they get plugged into the CRM, there's some kind of sense that it makes. There is some kind of context there is lack of a system of intelligence on top. And the third reason is, even if that was there, how does the workflow come back?
Got it. So in essence, what you're saying, the real problem is the visibility, right? And the intelligence. and it is not lack of leads.
It is not lack of leads.
So that's
at
what
all.
you're saying. Because end of the day,
In fact, Sri, things have gotten better. Earlier, you used to buy a huge directory, and you had names and phone
Correct,
numbers alone.
correct.
So there was never a dearth of leads.
So there's
It's,
never a dearth.
right, and you did these massive events and organized huge events to get some kind of a context just for the sales guys to go back and, hey, we met there during that event. Do you think we can talk? Who cares, right? But imagine if there is a system of intelligence that just sits beautifully on top of the CRM and is looking at the CRM with hawk eyes to say who's changed a job, who's got a promotion, who's probably got a new role. Hey, this new company is probably looking for a similar role.
Correct.
You can go and get. Hey, this person has moved departments.
Correct.
Right. This new company has a new product. This company has, for example, announced their earnings, and there is a drop in their earnings per share because of these reasons. Like so many ways,
like a growing
intelligent ways to
company,
do
right?
it.
For example,
Yep.
a beautiful way to find a warm lead from your existing database is that imagine there is a customer, for some reason, it's part of your CRM, but imagine they have done a fundraise, or they've been hiring.
Fundraise, talk about it.
They've been hiring for a specific role which is of interest for you, right? I mean, all of them are so which means is that the problem is not about leads in the CRM. It's the problem is the visibility and the intelligence.
Correct.
It is not the lack of leads. I mean, that's
the crux of it. And
that's the crux of it, right?
Third piece, and you've done this several times. How are you thinking about? Let's assume now that the CRM is there. You stick in
Correct.
Highperformr, right? The system of intelligence on top of it.
Right.
Then what happens? How do you wire that to the last mile, the sales guy?
Correct.
That's a big problem as well.
Correct. Then there's also one more point, Ramesh, I think before I get into that, right? So there's always the perception that CRM data is not as good as what it has to be. Right, the CRM hygiene is also
Give me an
big.
example.
The CRM hygiene is of great, interest. For example, you would have gotten a lead. The reason why there is a term new lead being used for being able to refer things which are important by time is because if you go back 6 months back, the database or the contacts which are present in the CRM don't have their latest email, doesn't have their latest location. All the data what is there is stopped. It is basically like a time machine where CRM is considered as a dumping snapshot of data which is coming from the marketing team and they still kind of resides there. Sales team picks up the last maybe 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, maybe depending on the whole cycle, and the CRM data over a period of time become junk. Right? That is the other reason. Now,
correct.
Now coming back to the question what you asked, right? Hey, does it really mean that the CRM should be kept up to date? Yes, the CRM should basically actively be updated on a weekly, monthly basis. Only then, you could identify the warm leads.
Absolutely.
And how do you do it? Of course, you enrich the contact information in first place.
Can we just take a pause there, Sri? And
sure.
You've mentioned enriched at least 5 times in the last 3 minutes.
Correct.
What does enrichment mean?
I'll give an example, Ramesh. You basically moved from your, the last job about 1.5 years back, right? You were basically heading the demand gen for the digital inbound.
Yeah.
Now you started your own, the setup with Highperformr. If you go back, I can tell you 8 out of 10, databases, CRMs, which had your record would still say that you're still heading the demand gen.
Of course, I still get calls.
Correct. That's the problem. Ideally speaking, your data, the moment you updated your LinkedIn, it should be updated in the CRM.
So if you were a CRM admin,
yes.
I'm just flipping your role from being a product manager to CRM admin. What are the fields that you would go about enriching every week, month, 90 days, or a year? Like
I look at 2 things, Ramesh. I look at it 2 records. If I wear the cap of a CRM admin, right, I start with the company, right? The company data should be always updated. The number one, or of course, their location, all of that information is important, super important, needs to be updated on a monthly, at least on a quarterly basis. What is even more important is that the number of the employees, the funding information, are they hiring, are they letting people go, right? The news about the company, right? The number of job openings and the technology in which they're handling is super important. And that's an evolving
But
thing.
does that change constantly?
It keeps changing, right? People evaluate tools every month, right? Every quarter at least, every year at least, right? Like more importantly, people hire.
So what would you do if the system of intelligence told you that Highperformr was the last time you looked at this company?
Correct.
It was 50 employees.
Now
it's when you enrich it, it's now gone to 120 employees.
Exactly.
In the last one year.
Exactly.
Right?
So now what it means, Ramesh, is that typically 8 out of 10 CRMs are set up such that there's a good chance that the number of employees in the company would be updated from 50 to 120, but it did not have a signal which says that this is a growing company.
Correct.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
So then if you find that, hey, I have this company which has been growing, which has been funded, it's in news, they've hired a new CPO, they've hired a new, the VP of sales. Now that's a warm lead, because that company knows you by brand, because they would have signed up for something, or they would have come to your website, whatever reason, they have at least seen your LinkedIn ad, they are part of your CRM.
What else in this world of AI do you think can be called enrichment? Because signals, growth is a great signal.
Correct.
What are the other enrichment fields that you can have?
For example,
AI? Because phone number, email, there are a lot of players out there. What could be AI enrichment fields?
Even the email and phone, Ramesh, not every AI, the enrichment vendor provides 100%, right? So you need to implement smart AI-driven, the enrichment, the automation, or the workflow. That is one, we can talk about it in a different day, but that's important, right? Number two is basically, if you're a company, you should look at the number of job openings. What jobs are they hiring, right? That gives a clear indicator of an intent account.
So can you track sales jobs being?
You should be tracking for sales jobs. Are they hiring SDRs? What is the point in selling a sales commission software for a company which is not hiring SDRs and AEs?
Right.
Unless the Fortune 500 company, right? So those are the signals. Imagine you have 10 companies in your database, which clearly say, when I say database, I mean the CRM,
right?
Which clearly indicates that all of this, these 10 companies are growing. They're hiring SDR. I'm selling a sales commission software. Then that's a company you should go after. And on top of it, they have hired a new VP of sales, right? That's on the signal on the maybe on the contacts, right? That's how you basically apply AI. That's how you apply signals. Then you basically identify the warm leads. Let's say, imagine a champion who's been using your product, and maybe that person moved from one job, from the existing customer to another company which is also matching your ICP, part of the TAM book. Wouldn't you want to know that?
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah,
that's a warm lead sitting right there. Right?
So I think this is
and more important, Ramesh, you have a champion. There's an executive, new hire. That's a good sign. On the other side, there's an executive exit. The sponsor who basically got you in has left the company. Now, what do you do now? As an account executive, as the customer-facing role, you would need to be on top of this.
Right. Let me ask you this question, Sri, right?
Yeah.
You are saying, or rather we spoke about it in getting our CRMs be the source of leads.
Definitely.
But there is a supply-demand problem that I see, right? For enterprise companies, you are spending quite a bit on marketing.
Correct.
And you're getting those leads.
Correct.
Here you're saying, hey, enrich your own CRM, you would get a lot more leads. Where does it balance? Do you think just enriching your own CRM will provide you enough number of leads that you can actually spend lesser on marketing? Where does that balance stand?
So it's an interesting question, Ramesh. Where do you start, right? So if you're basically a company with, like, let's say 100,000 contacts already in your database, right?
In your CRM.
Which in your CRM, right? Which is the case for most of the customers we've been talking to,
Yeah.
right? There is a very good chance your warm leads can generate 5 to 10% of your leads for your next month or for
You're talking about 10,000 leads, anywhere between 5 to
10% of them should be your target
every
audience.
month.
I mean, in quarter, let's say, right? So that way it can actively be able to help your pipe, very actively, right? I'm talking about just the job change tracking for your champions can get you at anywhere between 2 to 5% of your pipeline, for the next quarter, right? But today, the main reason we're not able to do that, there are a lot of, I would say, the point solutions, which basically do some of these things, not inconsistent, the data is not latest. The real problem is the visibility and intelligence. It is not the lack of leads. If you are a startup or a growing company with 100,000 leads in your system already, I'm telling you, you're sitting on a gold mine.
Hey, while Sri was talking about that, I was doing a back of the envelope calculation, and in my whatever with little knowledge that I said, in a quarter, if you're able to generate 10,000 leads in a quarter, and let's assume the cost of acquiring a lead is as low as $300, you're literally saving 3 million.
100%.
Is that what you're saying?
I can bet on that.
A company that has enough marketing budget, or a company that has, let's say, about 200,000 contacts in your CRM,
Yes.
every quarter you will help the company save 3 million on marketing.
Depends. Yes.
Right?
For sure.
Hear that, guys? This is
That's a potential. But I want to tell you that the most valuable pipeline is the one you already own. But the most of the team don't know how to mine it, right? So end of the day, this is the way I will put it, Ramesh. Right? We've been spending all our demand gen exercise outside in.
Always.
The time has come. There are tools out in the market today. One example is Highperformr itself, where we can help you increase the visibility and bring that intelligence so that you could basically go mine them into your own CRM.
Yeah, I want to talk about a customer, a couple of them who are recently our customers, and they came to us and said, hey, this is exactly what they came, and I know you're getting the idea from there, Sri, to say, hey, we have 500,000 contacts already in our system.
Correct.
How can you generate more leads?
Correct.
Right? So that's the potential that every enterprise today has to say, how can you create your own lead gen from your own existing database, which is your CRM, without spending anything. And this is possible, mind you, today only because of AI. Because you are able to enrich this at super speeds.
Correct.
You are able, at a click of a button, you would get to know if they have a new email or if they have a new phone number, have they changed jobs, is this company provided any external information that you can reach out to, has there been a new champion, all in less than a few minutes you're able to enrich it. And that's the reason why you're saying that CRM can be your own lead gen engine.
Absolutely. In fact, the real problem is not leads. There is enough. The problem is visibility and intelligence, and that's where we are pinning on. Like exactly as mentioned, right, Ramesh, the most valuable pipeline is one you already own. But I think like most of the GTM teams don't know how to mine it. Our focus is being totally outside in rather than doing the inside out as well. I'll give you another example, right? We have another customer of ours where we help them identify the target account book and they do retargeting on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I mean, this is even better, right? These customers already know your brand. They basically have been some part of your, the inbound flow. But now you don't want to do a retargeting, but do it after they exhibit some buyer signals.
Correct.
Right? In essence, that's what we want to do, right? But Ramesh, I think maybe in the future we should double click on how to do it. But I mean, if you want to just wrap it, right? Like, what is the key takeaway, right?
Yep. I think that clearly it's about don't keep chasing new.
Okay.
Cultivate the old.
Okay.
It's like always saying when you already have a customer, put more weight behind them rather than chasing new customers. Similarly, when you already have leads which are in the system, cultivate them rather than going and chasing the old. So that's my biggest takeaway from this. A very simple message. It's always going behind. Of course, saving money is an added benefit, right? That comes to every marketing team. But I think today, in the age of AI, companies like Highperformr are able to help companies enrich your existing database, existing CRM at a fraction of a second, and you already have the leads ready. Plug them into your existing workflow. Let it start rolling again with your, right? So that's a very, very easy way to do it rather than go chase new leads, spend more money, then you come back and say, no, they are not my ICP, these are junk leads and so on. Because these leads which are there, 75% are not junk anymore because they are belonging to your CRM, right? So
yeah, in fact, Ramesh, thanks, Ramesh, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. But the whole the thought process here is that you should think about how you could turn your CRM from being a very dusty, the database into a dynamic demand gen engine, right? That's the whole opportunity we have.
Absolutely, that's a nice way of putting it.
So maybe would love to know your thoughts on how you are, maybe thinking about doing this change.
We can help you for sure.
Of course, we can do that. But until that time, we'll catch you next time. And
next time with a newer topic. And tell us what you would like to listen to us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.